Welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. Today we have Kaitlynn Wheeler on the show. She is an athlete and a recent addition to the Turning Point USA organization. We're going to talk about swimming at the highest levels. We're going to talk about CrossFit, and she was teammates with Riley Gaines of the University of Kentucky in the infamous swim meet. So we're going to also talk about transgender athletes in women's sports. So let's get into it. Kaitlynn Wheeler, thank you for joining our podcast today. We're excited to have you on the show. You've got a tremendous story and a lot to talk about. So without further ado, why don't we get into some of our questions? What do you say?
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Very cool. And boys, what did you line up?
So first off, I heard that you're doing CrossFit, right? So
Yes, I am.
are you gonna do the Murph, and are you ready for it?
Unfortunately, I probably will get roped into it, but that's next week. So I'm not looking forward to it, but it always ends up being fun to do. Definitely get sore after. How about you guys?
Mm-hmm.
I
Definitely.
haven't actually done the full thing before. I did a half one with Dad, but we split it. And that was torture.
Yeah.
But this time we're gonna actually try it.
We're gonna
Dad's
do
gonna
it.
try a weighted vest. He's insane.
We're gonna do it. I'm gonna attempt it with the vest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people ask. I think in the CrossFit world, it's like it ends up being just like a group suffering. I think that's what we like
Yeah.
to call it. We like to suffer, we like pain, but it's always fun.
Right. I expect it will be a lot of suffering, but we're gonna do it on Memorial Day. So we're excited about that. I actually ran the other day with the vest on, and it's horrible. It feels like you're suffocating because of the weight of the
Yep.
vest on you and
And
everything.
pull-ups
Yeah.
and everything. Of course, I didn't do it with the weighted vest for the pull-ups because I struggle enough just doing them body weight, but it's always fun having, like you said, the community aspect. I think that's why I got into CrossFit is because I loved having the camaraderie, the people to push you. Obviously, in my sport and practice, we always had people next to us pushing us. And so CrossFit, I did the whole gym thing where you go and put your headphones in and everyone just kind of keeps themselves. And I thought that was
Yeah.
boring. And so
It is
CrossFit
kind of
adds that cool community aspect.
Yeah, it is kind of boring. So it's definitely that competitive vibe and everything. It's fun. Now, you as a high level athlete, collegiate swimmer, champion, all of that, you must bring a lot of good conditioning though to the sport. So I suspect that the conditioning part is maybe the easier part for you, and maybe some of the lifting, the technical skills, and the gymnastic skills. Is that where you're picking things up?
Maybe not the gymnastic stuff. That stuff has been a little bit more difficult. I'm definitely more agile in the water as versus land. But
Hmm.
this morning we did a workout where it had a lot of running in it, a lot of endurance cardio work, which I think some of my friends got a little frustrated because beat some of them that I don't normally beat them in the strength portions. So I think they were just a little frustrated. But I have that swimming background, so it gives me great endurance, great lung capacity, and helps me with those more cardio focused workouts. So it was fun though. They
Right.
had a good time.
Yeah.
Why is it where you chose CrossFit instead of heavy lifting or something other than that?
Yeah, so my older sister, she had been involved in CrossFit, so she kind of introduced me to it. I'd gone to the gym with her a couple times, and then where I was living in Kentucky, I found a gym and I started going. I was like, "Oh, I'll just try it out. This seems to be more exciting, more structured than just going to the gym by myself," and just fell in love with it. I know you guys probably understand this. There's something about picking up a barbell and dropping it and hitting PRs and encouraging one another and all of those aspects that I think CrossFit brings, which are very unique as opposed to going to the gym or maybe other sports. I really loved it. It gave me a way to continue setting goals for myself, to continue to push myself. Something I think I missed when I finished with my sport, which I think you guys probably understand that doing CrossFit yourselves.
Mhm. For sure. For sure.
CrossFit's pretty fun.
It is. It's painful and fun at the same time. In fact, well, Will and I went this morning, and it was Murph prep. We did half a Murph, and it was pretty miserable.
Yeah,
But,
Max decided to be lazy and just slept in.
Yeah, that's right. That's
I
right.
have those mornings too, so he's not alone.
Well, okay, that's very cool. We have CrossFit in common, and if you're in Phoenix someday, you have to let us know. Have you pop into the
Absolutely.
gym, and that'd be fun to do a workout together. So,
Yeah.
what else? Let's maybe get into a little bit more of your swimming career. What do you say, boys?
Yeah. All right. So
Yay.
what moments really in your swimming career like stood out as like particularly defining?
Mm. Well, there's, I think, a lot that I could pinpoint, especially early in my career of swimming. I fell in love with the sport. It was something where I could kind of go and be away from the world, away from the noise, away from the drama and the homework and all those fun things. I could just go and turn my mind off and get in the pool and block all the rest of the world out. It became like a safe space for me. I know that sounds a little cliche, but it really was. I loved swimming. And as far as transformational moments, sports, you guys being athletes yourselves, they teach you so many incredible life skills. And for me, I think one of the biggest for me was being a team captain in college. I was voted as team captain my senior year, and I was very thankful and I guess honored to have that role. But it changed my perspective of sports and the opportunities I guess that it gives you. It made me, I think a lot of people sometimes may think, okay, well this is going to be about me. This is more, what are my goals? What are my times in this race? What do I want to achieve? Made it a little bit different, wanting my teammates to succeed, even though I had that previous mindset going into it. But I felt like a responsibility to ensure that my teammates were being held to the standard, as well as, I would expect them to hold me to a standard. So I think being a team captain, it taught me some great leadership skills. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always easy standing up to the coach sometimes, even when voicing things from my teammates, maybe some frustrations with the coach. It gave me a different skill that I hadn't really tapped into before, but I'm very thankful for that.
Speaking of a coach, like what is a good coach in swimming? Like, like a tough, hardworking one or like a one that kind of does like other stuff.
My coach in college, he was really hard on me specifically. I think coming in my freshman year, he was very hard. We had some really good girls that had just graduated, they had just left. We needed people to fill those roles and even do better. So immediately when I came in, my coach held me to a very high standard. It would get frustrating. He'd be yelling at me, even though I would be in practice trying my hardest. He'd be there at the side of the pool every time I finished. He'd be screaming at me, saying, you need to be hitting these times, these paces. But I eventually learned that I would rather have a coach that held me to a high standard, that pushed me to those standards, than someone who completely ignored me and didn't care about my overall success or achievements. I was thankful for a coach that, set a high bar, because he helped me be the best swimmer that I could possibly be. His goals were my goals, and that worked out well for me.
Yeah, that's good. You hear that, boys?
Yes.
It's good to be
Right
hard.
here.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have adversity and be hard on
Yes, it
your
makes
your
me
athletes.
resilient.
Now, what? So the boys also are competitive swimmers,
Oh,
and what did you focus on, or what was your
main events.
specialty? Sorry.
Yeah. So I was an IM. I did IM in high school. I wanted to be good at all the strokes. I wanted to do them all. So IM seemed to be a event that I did well in. I loved it. I loved the 200 IM. That was my favorite event. It was quick. It kept it interesting. You didn't get bored
Mhm.
doing the same stroke for one event. And it was fun. It was my favorite event still to this day. Will forever be my favorite event. But in college, I was a freestyler. So I did the 200 free and the 500 free and the 100 free. So
Okay.
those were my three main events.
Wow,
What about
both
you
short
guys?
and long distance then.
Yes, absolutely. What do you guys swim?
I
Well,
like IM also. IM
yeah,
is
Yeah,
my
I am's a
favorite.
pretty fun stroke. I mean, I'm more of like a short distance swimmer. I don't like long distances, even though I mean 500 is kind of fun, but I'm more of like a 50 or 100 type of guy.
Yeah, that
So,
takes a lot of skill. So mad respect for you.
wait, what
And
what was your 100 free time?
Short course or long course?
Short course.
Short course, my best was a 47 high. So it was like a 48, a 47.8.9, something around there. But
that's
that was like
fast.
wow.
That's
best time,
fast.
lifetime best ever.
Wow,
That's
that is
that's really fast. I swam too, and I swam in
wow.
high school, so not nearly the same level. But wow, I mean, we were competitive in high school. That's a fast time. You swam at a high level, and you were the captain of the Kentucky team, and you all like did very well year after year in swimming, right? You're one of the powerhouses in the swimming space, correct?
Yeah, our coach who was there for about 10 years, he really grew the program. We were very much a low level team in the SEC, which is the best conference. I'm biased, but it's the best
Mm.
conference. We were kind of on the lower end of that, but as he came in, he really built up the program and we were able to, during my time, my sophomore year actually was during COVID, we won SECs for the first time in school history. It was a really cool opportunity and a really cool experience to be a part of, history like that. But yeah, we definitely were able to make a name for Kentucky for sure.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Congratulations.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious, how do you like train your mind and stuff like when you're behind the blocks and like you're just like about to jump in? Or are you just like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared? Because like also all the coaches always have like different ideas of what you should do before you swim, like to
Yeah.
meditate, as I've heard from some, others to like stretch, others just like stay warm.
Yes.
What do you think's the best option to do?
I really liked to just have peace and quiet. I tried to just really focus and envision my race. What was I going to do? What am I going to do into this certain wall? What's my race strategy? I didn't like to get behind the blocks. Some of the girls like to talk to each other. I kind of liked just, to loosen up. I would do stretches and just really focus in on my racing strategy and knowing that I had put in a lot of work and time and effort in preparing for that race. So just remembering that I had done the work, and here was just another way of executing. The work was done and it was going to pay off. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety. That's something I don't necessarily miss, although I do feel that. I don't know when you guys do like max, days in CrossFit when you're doing those heavy lifts. I
Mhm.
feel that same type of nerves and anxiety was when we put that barbell on your back or whatever the movement is. I
Mm.
get a little nervous for those things, but I think it's good. It builds character, and failure is a skill, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very
That's very
true.
cool.
Well, how about we transition? I'll use that word
Literally.
carefully
Literally and
into
figuratively.
into another aspect of your swimming career. You were part of a very controversial moment in swimming and in culture with Lia Thomas and the locker room incidents and everything. And you are teammates with Riley Gaines, who had been outspoken about this for a while now. So why don't we transition into that topic? And we'd like to learn more about sort of that experience.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll take you back to kind of my beginning of college. There was a lot of obstacles, a lot of adversity. My freshman year was the 2019-2020 year, which we all know what happened in 2020. The world shut down, at least our country did, for sure. But that year we were at the end of the season. It was my freshman year. It was really difficult. I was homeschooled growing up, so going and moving away 6 hours away from my family and my home, being thrown in a completely different training schedule, very intense. I thought what I had done in high school prepared me well for college, but little did I know, day one was not at all what I thought. But it was good. It built a lot of strength and adversity for me. But I was fortunate enough to make NCAAs, which is our national meet, arguably one of the fastest meets in the entire world.
Right.
You're racing against the phenoms of the sport, Olympians, world record holders. I
Yeah,
was
there's people that have better times in that event than in the Olympics, right?
Yes,
It's
exactly.
crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy, and the people you're competing against are people, of course, that I looked up to a lot in my career, and so I was fortunate enough my freshman year to make it to that meet. And about 2 days prior to leaving, we were pulled out of practice, told by our coaches that NCAA's was canceled and that we would have to pack up our stuff and go home. We thought we would be home for maybe a week or two due to COVID, but we were ended up doing school remotely the rest of the semester and being home that entire summer, unable to train. Although I found other avenues to train, I ended up swimming at a pond down the street from my house, which I would say is very cold. And God knows what was in that pond. But you did what you had to do. I wanted to have a good sophomore year. So, sophomore year rolls around, of course, we're faced with a lot of adversity and obstacles there, a lot of mask mandates, contact tracing, vaccine mandates, which is another story. But of course, there was a lot of obstacles that we faced in order to have really essentially consistent training, which it made it difficult. But we prevailed as a team. We ended up winning SECs that year, which I mentioned before.
Mhm.
And then junior year rolls around, and at this point, I'm like, okay, all the things that could happen have already happened.
What else could happen
What
possibly,
could
right?
possibly
What
go
could
wrong
possibly
now?
get
Little do
weirder?
you
What could
know.
possibly get stranger than this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So about halfway through my junior year, of course, where your entire season you're focused on SECs and NCAAs. But in order to make it to NCAAs, you have to fall within the top 60 or so within each event. So
Mhm.
we go to what we call mid-season meet around November, December time, NCAAs being in March. This mid-season meet, you swim, you suit up. By suit up, I mean we put our racing suits on and we see where we're at ranked in our events to see if, maybe we're on that threshold of making NCAAs.
Mhm.
And of course, we're seeing where everyone else is ranked. I remember we were at practice and it was after mid-seasons. We were waiting for all the other teams to compete and these rankings to come out. As we were looking through the rankings, we noticed a name that was ranked first in multiple events ranging from the 50 to the mile, which isn't common. Even in the sport of running, it's like having your fastest sprinter be your fastest distance runner as well. It's not common to have that. Of course, this name also was one we never recognized before. It was a senior coming from the University of Pennsylvania, which isn't commonly known to produce very fast swimmers. So it stuck out to us like a sore thumb. Of course, in freestyle events too, because those were my events as well.
Mm-hmm.
A few days after that, we read an article about this swimmer who's breaking conference records, team records, finishing body lengths. I mean, videos come out, body lengths ahead of the other female athletes in these events. And so in this article, at the very end, there's one line that says, Lia Thomas, formerly known as Will Thomas, swam at the University of Pennsylvania men's team and is now swimming on the University of Pennsylvania women's team. And this, put all the pieces together for us. We were like, oh, well, this isn't actually a woman. This is a man that's breaking all of these records, being ranked first in the country. It was crazy. It was something I was like, never personally. I think I'd heard at that point instances of men competing in women's sports, but it was so, I guess, I never ever thought in my life, real life, I would come across this.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't really see it as an issue because I thought, okay, if this is the NCAA is the only opportunity that we would ever see him possibly. They're not going to let a male compete at the women's NCAA championships.
Right.
No way. They're going to see it how we see it, have common sense and a brain. But they didn't see it that way actually at all. About a week out from our meet, they released a statement saying that Lia Thomas would be allowed to compete at our meet. And of course, as swimmers, you're told by your coaches, focus on your race, focus on everything you've been preparing for this
Don't
season.
worry about distractions.
Exactly.
Keep focused, yeah.
And it wasn't our job to necessarily, deal with the situation. It was up to our leaders. It was up to the people within the NCAA, people within our coaching staff, our administrators, people who are supposed to be looking out for us. But that's not in fact what we saw. We saw our leaders completely and utterly fail us, not only in this instance, but to so many other female athletes across the board in all sports, all levels, all age ranges. Ever since that experience, which the whole Lia Thomas story is very well known now, but there are so many other stories just like ours of female athletes being sidelined on podiums, being exploited in locker rooms. It's truly heartbreaking. But that instance for me, I watched my teammate Riley tie with Lia Thomas in the turn of freestyle. They ended up giving her trophy to him and told her that she would have to go home empty-handed. I watched him take away an NCAA national title from a deserving female athlete, and I had to change in the locker room with him. That was something that I never in my life thought I would see in a locker room, changing, of course, turning around and seeing a 6'4" man, which I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a tall girl, but I had to gaze up at this man in our locker rooms who was frankly changing and, dropped his pants, exposing everything to us in the locker room while we were simultaneously undressed. So crazy, crazy stuff. But I think, obviously humiliated and violated, but betrayed by the NCAA, an organization who, ironically, that very same year was celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX, which, for those who don't know, is to protect sex-based opportunities, specifically for women. It was crazy that they were allowing this to happen, and never in my life thought that we would be dealing with men and women's sports, men and women's spaces, but really in many other areas as well now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so wild to even imagine this. So the fact that you were there and experienced this firsthand, of course, most of us were reading about this and like, this is crazy. Anxiety or awkwardness of being in a locker room, turning to look at somebody next to you, and it's Lia Thomas changing
Yep.
in your locker room.
And you see their ding dong.
This is so like
I mean,
That doesn't make any sense.
it's as crazy as it sounds. I'll kind of paint the picture here for you. A locker room isn't necessarily a place of modesty. You're throughout a 5-day meet, you're going into the locker room, you're changing at least 5 to 6 times a day between sessions, warming up changing into your practice suit, warming up, going back into the locker room, taking your practice suit on, putting your racing suit on, going back out, doing your race, coming back in, putting your practice suit on, warming down, and then coming back in and changing out of your practice suit, putting your clothes on. That's just for one session.
Yeah.
And we had 2 sessions every single day for a 5-day meet. So you're going into the locker rooms a lot. And of course, you're undressing in these environments. Growing up in the sport of swimming, doing this for most of your life, you have to kind of get comfortable being vulnerable in these environments. It's hot, it's humid, but it's also a place of chatter and excitement. You have those pre-meet race jitters. You're excited. You're talking with your teammates and girls you had known for the majority of your career. You'd been racing against them. Maybe had come from the same state, so you know each other well at this point. And I remember that first night we got there, I went into the locker rooms to change. And of course, I'm talking with a couple friends, and it got really quiet all of a sudden. And I noticed this. And of course, you're not normally gazing around the locker room looking at everyone, but I noticed how quiet it got. And it got kind of awkward. So I turned around immediately. I mean, he stood out from everyone. A mere 10 feet from me, you could immediately tell that every single girl in that locker room felt uncomfortable. I mean, our instinct was to cover ourselves. I think I was looking around like, are we supposed to be running out of here screaming? Like,
Right.
should we call the police? Because it was everything innate within me to feel as though this wasn't normal. And I think that they just thought we would accept it as normal. But that's, of course, not how we felt. And I think the majority of the athletes felt the same way. We even had a girl, her name's Callie Alons, an amazing phenom athlete. She was a 31-time All-American, which is almost unheard of in sports, of course, NCAA sports. But she went and changed in a storage closet because she felt safer in a storage closet than she did her own locker room. So just to kind of paint the picture for you of what we were faced not only on the competition side of things, but in the locker rooms. It's truly heartbreaking. And my heart breaks for the athletes, the female athletes who had to change with him multiple times a day, every single day, for weeks and months on end, who were teammates with him. Paula Scanlon, who's one of his teammates, she's very outspoken about this and their experience and the emotional blackmail that they even faced from their universities. So truly heartbreaking that was what we were faced at this elite, prestigious meet these female athletes were subjected to.
So what, like, after finally saying all of this madness, basically, right? What finally motivated you to, like, speak out about it and, like, eventually you got in talk with Turning Point and stuff, so, like...
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I share my story, but at the same time, I share my younger sister's story. So about a year after this meet, Riley had very much come out at this point and shared her story. It caught national news attention and became a very well-known story. But I think at the moment, I felt as though I didn't want to see myself as a victim. I didn't want to feel as though this issue would be an issue that we would have to face again. I thought this would be the one-off issue and it would be resolved. But a year later, my younger sister, who was also a swimmer at the time, she is 16. She was kicked off of her swim team and banned from a YMCA for speaking up about men going in and changing in the women's locker room. Keep in mind, this isn't 18 to 22-year-olds. This is a 16-year-old, a minor, and her other underage teammates, 5 and 6-year-old girls changing in locker rooms with 50, 60-year-old men, because there were multiple of them. And she was kicked off. So I reached out to Riley and I was like, look, this has happened to now my younger sister. This is crazy that this is happening. And of course, opened my eyes to all the other areas, women's prisons, men being allowed into women's prisons, men wanting to be a part of Girl Scouts, men wanting to be a part of women's sororities, men going into women's domestic violence shelters. I mean, it was crazy. I think that was the eye-opening moment for me to realize that this issue was way broader than just sports, and then see the truly evil of this whole gender ideology movement, which I could talk for hours about. But that's really what motivated me to speak out, was not only had it happen to me, but it happened to my younger sister. Of course, it changed a lot for me.
Wow.
Do you think transgender issues are a social contagion, or like, yeah?
Yeah, I truly think it is. I would even take it a step further. I think that it's almost institutionalized now. I think that, yes, we have our phones, we have social media, kids have access to so many evil things out there that people are posting on social media to, I think, brainwash people.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate to see how this has been institutionalized, put into public schools, and being taught to kids. The books that they're putting in schools and having kids read, I think, starts to mess with the minds of the innocent. And so it's definitely become, I think, a more popular topic to talk about, and parents have become more aware about it. And I think COVID really opened the eyes of parents. We saw during the pandemic where parents, in order for parents to even find out what schools were teaching their children, they had to sue school districts. And once they found out what they were teaching their children, parents were outraged. The content that they were teaching young kids about sex and gender ideology, and it was truly crazy, I think, to parents. And I think that's when a lot of parents started homeschooling, which I'm a big proponent of.
It is really wild how this has become really mainstream and normalized. And I suppose now that you've come out and spoke up about your experience and some of the dangers of it, I imagine you've had threats and been called all kinds of names. Tell us how that experience has been.
I will say that, of course, anytime you take any sort of public stance on controversial issues, 3 years ago, this wasn't a popular topic to discuss. I think before, when I would bring it up to people, you could tell they immediately got awkward. They didn't even want to talk about it. The issue that men cannot be women and women cannot be men, the most common sense, black and white, basic biology fact, people were so uncomfortable even having an opinion on. So I think obviously since then it's changed a lot. I think a lot of it's due to our current administration, President Trump, and him fighting for First Amendment rights, fighting for free speech has definitely changed, I think, the cultural landscape and has allowed people to feel more free to express their opinions on it. But of course, back then it wasn't as popular. I got these crazy DMs on Instagram, which I'm sure you guys get, crazy DMs and crazy hate comments from these no profile picture profiles with 0 followers who are just trolling, anyone who they disagree with, calling names, hateful, bigoted, transphobic, all of these white supremacists, all these crazy terms, which some of them I didn't even know what they meant. I was like, what? This is crazy. But that's what it is. All it is name calling. And we know what happens when people resort to name calling. It's because they know they've lost the argument. Developed thick skin when it comes to those hate comments. But compared to the support that I received, it was 1,000 to 1. The amount of people who reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, your story has been so inspirational to me. We've faced this in our YMCA or our public schools or at our, soccer team." It inspired and gave other parents, other athletes courage to speak up and share their own stories, which I've been able to help so many other female athletes and parents do that over the past couple of years, which I think has helped get this topic a lot of traction. But of course, you're going to get hate comments. But when you're getting hate comments, you're doing something right. I would just say that kind of comes with the territory. You learn to brush those things off.
We get a lot of hate. I mean,
Imagine.
That can go
we
on.
got Dad, what's it called? Like when they sent you your personal information?
Doxed.
Yeah, we got doxed.
Yeah.
Like all of it. So it was, and then I feel like we get more hate than actually like love for our channel.
Yeah.
But I feel like the good thing is that maybe you should look at it for like, this is what normally I do. I like only look at it I don't really look at it, and I only look at it like once a month. And I'm like, okay. And it's
Yeah. And you know what? Like, it's crazy. It's like, how do the people have the time to do like comment this stuff on people's stuff? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
do you have a job? Don't you have a life? But apparently
they
they have nothing better to do.
They
yeah,
just sit
they
in their basement while just going
they don't, unfortunately. It's actually I find it quite sad. A lot of them are real degenerates. Like they're not working, they're just out trolling. And when you look at their profile, the people that are really nasty, you'll realize that they're just angry. Their life is hard or difficult, or they they feel helpless or whatever it might be, and then they lash out at other people. It's pretty sad. That's typically what we see when we look at them, but we just try to brush it off similarly. Back to the transgender trend, the institutions and the media and political ideologies have been pushing to normalize this. And yes, there's finally now, I think, hit a wall. Trump's election, I think this was a big part of it because it really is an 80-20 rule. Like 80% of the people are saying,
Yeah.
this is bananas.
I would argue
Um,
it's even higher than that. I would think it's like a 97-3 issue.
it might be.
Yeah.
And so I think that is that reflects in Trump's election and some of the orders that he's put in place now. In my humble experience, we've had transgender people on the show, and we engage with people online and so forth. They're not giving up on this fight for access to women's spaces. Like they still are going to demand access to women's spaces and justify it through various means. So I guess that leads to the question, what advice do you have for young athletes that face this awkward experience?
I think a lot of the what's been spoken from the trans community is we just want to exist. Just let us exist. You can't erase us. Well, let me be very clear. We're not trying to erase anyone. We're not going after trans people. We're not telling people that they can't exist. We are very much trying to protect women, protect women's opportunities, protect women's rights to privacy of areas of undressing. I believe that God created us all uniquely and specifically. He did not make a mistake in how he created us.
Mm.
But I also believe that he gave us the freedom to live our lives the way that we so choose. And so I would never want to tell someone they can't live a certain way. I want people to make their own decisions and live their lives. I
Mhm.
respect that. But also respect my right to believe in what I believe. And that's truth, that's sanity, it's common sense. And I think truth ultimately comes from biblical truth. We know this. As far as advice to female athletes, I would tell them to trust your instincts, stand firm in the truth. And I think this goes for anyone, for young kids, boys, parents, teachers, coaches, administrators, anyone. Stand firm in what you believe in. I think truth is under attack. There's now your truth and my truth, but we're quickly escaping the truth, and there can only be one. And
Mhm.
so I would just tell young girls, if you're experiencing this, if you're being faced with this, stand firm in what you believe in. I was always told, be compassionate, be respectful, be loving. But I quickly learned that you can be loving, you can be compassionate, and you can be respectful, but you can also do those things and still simultaneously tell the truth. I think this whole issue has helped me find my voice, has helped me become a stronger person. I think it's helped me really be able to find the strength and the courage to speak out, not just on this issue, but in other areas that I very much believe are right and wrong. I would just encourage young girls, don't wait until you're faced with it head on. Start having conversations with your circles, because whether you believe it or not, all of you have circles of influence. So it doesn't have to look like 10,000 followers on
Yeah.
Instagram or TikTok to make an impact. Just start having conversations with your circles of influence. That can make a really big difference, especially with someone who maybe doesn't know how to express these certain viewpoints.
Obviously, you can speak out to the school, the board, the coaches, and things like that. I'm seeing more people boycott these events. They'll show up and they just won't compete. And that really sends a message. That's really awkward. What's your opinion on that?
Absolutely. I mean, just this past week, we saw a Doge subcommittee hearing where they called in four people to testify, two of which being two female athletes who have been impacted by this issue, one being Stephanie Turner, who was a fencer who took a knee. She
So that.
decided, I'm not going to compete against this male. She took a knee, and that video went viral. She decided that I'm not going to go along with the charade. Enough is enough. We've seen many other female athletes do this specific strategy of boycotting races, matches, whatever it is. It's been very effective in sending a message that we're not going to go along with this. We're not okay with this. I think the initial stance is to stay silent about it, but silence begs complicity, and we can't act as though we're okay with it. The other female athlete was Peyton McNabb, who was the volleyball player who went up against a trans player, got spiked a ball in the face, has permanent brain, life-changing injury, brain damage due to the impact of the ball hitting her in the face. The other two people they called in to testify was the USA fencing chair, Damon Lefelt, and then a National Women's Law Center representative who, don't be fooled, they're not at all for women. They fight against women, actually. But they were grilled. They were questioned about their stance on, after Stephanie Turner decided to take a knee in that instance, she was then given a black card and punished, and is now not going to continue fencing.
Bizarre.
So crazy stuff, but we're starting to see these people actually be held accountable. I'm in a lawsuit with 19 other female athletes that's suing the NCAA over this whole issue and violating Title IX. So we're seeing a lot of pushback. We're seeing the tides turn. Courage is contagious, and so it's only encouraging other people.
Good. Wow. Well, good for you, and it is great to see some of these young ladies standing up, because you work your whole life to be the best at something, and then you get to the race and there's a dude standing next to you. It's just so strange. But nonetheless, let's wrap up with the trans topic, and then I want to talk about, now you are moving on to a new sort of career trajectory, and so do you want to tell us a little bit about your role with Turning Point?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I officially now, Riley Gaines and I have both joined Turning Point. What Charlie has built is just a huge machine. We definitely believe that this whole men and women's sports issue is obviously a common sense issue, and we believe it has a shelf life. We believe that truth will prevail in the end, and that eventually this battle will be won. I don't know how long, if it's going to be 2 years or 5 years. Hopefully it's 1 year. Obviously, standing for truth is something that I'm passionate about and want to keep fighting for, and providing people with the opportunities to speak truth and have the First Amendment rights to be able to do that, especially on college campuses. And so what Charlie has built as far as these same issues and broader, I think is just a great avenue to unite on these issues. I think that's something that the Democratic Party does very, very, very well, is they're united, they're in lockstep with one another. And I think that's something that we're learning. I think we need to do more of it and not fighting each other. So I'm excited to be a part of Turning Point and what they've built thus far, and help contribute to the momentum that the Republican Party, I think, is making, for sure.
Yeah, Turning Point's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, congrats on the role with Turning Point. It's an incredible organization. I guess with that, we can wrap up, and we'll wish you luck on your next stage with Turning Point. And thank you so much for speaking up and doing it. It takes a lot of courage, and hopefully your story and your example can lead the way and the path for other young ladies to speak up. So thanks again for joining us.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.